welcome back to the channel and welcome to something of a head-to-head. That's right, today we're going to find out who makes the best rhubarb and custard pale ale. Granted, it's quite a niche, but long-term viewers of the channel may recognise this beer from one of my local favourite breweries, Blue Monkey, Blubarb and Custard, because I did actually review it. Actually, I think it was the first beer I reviewed in this new space that was new a while ago. So link up there if you want to go and see that. But this I've never tried before, from Northern Monk. It's from the Don't Mess With Yorkshire range, and it's called just Rhubarb and Custard Pale Ale. They're about the same ABV. I think this is 4.5 and the Blue Monkey 4.8, so very much within touching distance of each other. I'm going to find out who does it best. Now, before we do though, it's time to, we need to roll out the blue carpet. Since we've got a Blue Monkey in the house, it would be wrong not to use the Blue Monkey beer towel, which, looking at it, needs a clean. We don't need the beer mats anymore, so we can just bring these straight back out onto here. Blue Monkey in a Blue Monkey glass, of course, and then the Northern Monk going into a Black Owl Brewery glass, but of the same shape, so there's no arguing about glass merits and all that. It's all going to be very much head-to-head. So how are we going to do this? Well, we know what the Blue Monkey's like, at least the batch that we reviewed before, so I'm going to ignore that for the minute, actually, and put that over to one side, out of the way. We're going to focus on this. So this is Don't Mess With Yorkshire Rhubarb and Custard Pale Ale from Northern Monk, 4.5%. This is a supermarket available by, and I think I found this one in Scotland, of all places. I've said that a few times recently. They just seem to have better beer than at least my local shops here in Nottingham. So yeah, let's do a quick review of this on its own, then break into the Blue Monkey and see how they compare. Before we do a quick look at the can, some strong and obvious colour choices there. Pink for the rhubarb, yellow for the custard. It smells good, very sweet shoppy. Very yellow in the glass, very carbonated. I'm getting huge wafts of rhubarb. I probably shouldn't have poured it quite so aggressively because it's gone very cloudy. There's possibly a bit of sediment in there. Yeah, very strong on the rhubarb. Getting quite a lot of hop character through as well, even at a distance, like kind of rhubarb and lemony a bit, which is going to be the hops. Head's all but gone already, which is not really a surprise. Because it's very thin. It's almost precarious to hold up, to be honest. But that doesn't mean it's going to be bad, so let's see what the aromas are saying. Huge waft of vanilla, straight up. Although the rhubarb was dominant at a distance, when you get your nose in there, I mean, it's rhubarb and custard sweets all over. Exactly what you'd expect, kind of exactly what you want, possibly. When I reviewed this, a few people commented saying, well, it's just full of adjuncts and it's a bit, it's not real beer. I get what you're saying, but there's definitely space for novelties on occasion. I'm not really sure why I'm trying to pick out a load more. There's custard, there's rhubarb. Primarily it's rhubarb and custard sweets. It's very confectionery-like, it smells very sweet. And there is no hop character actually remaining on the nose, so that was just something that got released, I think, as the can opened. So, let's get into it. Cheers. Ooh, the confectionery sweet vibe continues. It's quite fizzy. There was a lot of carbonation in it, and this glass doesn't have the bubblies at the bottom. As you know, I never remember what they're called, and someone will say in the comments again. As a result of that, all the carbonation is still sitting within the beer, so it's very carbonated when I drink it. That wouldn't happen, obviously, in every glass. It's got a bit of a sherbety feel about it. It really does, though, taste exactly how you expect, like rhubarb and custard sweets. It's very sweet up front, but actually, it's quite clean. And there's actually quite a bit of that rhubarb sourness sticking around at the end. Doesn't stay particularly, you know, sticking to your mouth. Again, it's also quite thin, so it's really not a sickly sweet beer. It's just a bit sweet up front, and then it's almost a sour. This actually, it's not properly there, but you could argue a natural sour if you like for this one. I've definitely had a few sours in the past that have been very similar in terms of their astringency. So, top to bottom taste test. Initially, quite sweet and sour at the front of the tongue. Light mouthfeel, very light. Actually, not a lot of carbonation in that first stage. Then the sweetness rolls in, the vanilla comes in at that point, that real custardy bit, coats both sides of your mouth kind of halfway back. And just as that starts to descend into what you think is going to be quite a sweet, quite a luxurious, despite the general mouthfeel and thinness of it, all of a sudden you're hit by a huge amount of carbonation, weirdly, right in the middle. And then the rhubarb really comes into force. really taken over the rest of the experience. It is sour, but not horrifically, as I said before. It's just nicely sour, nicely refreshing from that sweetness that you had just a fraction of a second before. And then right at the back of the mouth, back of the throat, you get a bit of carbonation prickling, and you're left with, I don't know, I mean, it just kind of flip and flops. You kind of get sweet and then the rhubarb, and then the sweet and then the rhubarb, and the sweet and then the rhubarb, kind of all the way back almost. It's quite impressive in that respect. It's certainly not flat in terms of flavour profiles, put it that way. And as I say, it leaves you really wanting a bit more because it's not very sweet on the finish. Let's leave the rest of that in there now because we need enough to test it, of course. I remember drinking this, it wasn't all that long ago, and I've probably got a bit of bias anyway. This is my homegrown hero, effectively up against what is now the big dog of Northern Monk, the supermarket beer. They are, of course, still a craft brewery, but I've just got such a soft spot for these, so the bias is already there, and I feel like, from what I remember of this before, I still prefer it. But this was a lot nicer than I thought it might be, so we could be getting very close. So let's crack this open, just for old time's sake. Here is a look at the bottle. Another excellent colourway, very similar other than the obvious Blue Monkey. Immediately, as I just brought this past my head, there's a smell in here which is intrinsically more beery, if you know what I mean. It's nothing particular, it's almost like best bitter aroma. It's light, and I'm not going to put my nose too close to it, but there is that. It's definitely giving off a more traditional beer vibe. Very pale, this one, not as cloudy, not got the yellow tinge. Much more pale ale in appearance. And I mean, this is presumably not bottle conditioned, but that is as clear as you like, with the exception of the dog hair that's floating around in there. But that's just what you get when you have huskies. It's still very thin. I don't want to wave this around too much. It really is a bit precarious in the glass, as was the Northern Monk. Aromas. More sherbety. It's not got the aroma punch that this has. It's much more low-key. In fact, you could even be fooled into thinking, just on aroma, that this was a bit of a nondescript pale ale, to be honest. Which is interesting. It really doesn't have any of the flair that the Northern Monk has on the aroma. But it's all in the taste, so let's see how it fares. That is, after trying that, wildly different. I mean, this, wow, I'm blown away. I mean, this actually just tastes like a pale ale now. I think this is so amped up compared to this that poor Blue Monkey actually doesn't really taste of an awful lot. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take a few more sips of this and see if anything starts to change. I'm still not really getting a lot. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave for 5 minutes. Obviously, for you it will be immediate, but I'm going to step away, let my palate kind of reacclimatise, drink some water and see if I can get anything else back out of that, because, well, it doesn't taste like what I remember it tasting like, and it certainly doesn't taste of anything. But I feel like it's a better beer just from what I remember. So anyway, I think my taste buds have been butchered by this. Give me 5, or in your case 2 seconds, and be right back. And just like that, I'm back. Now, I mean, I don't know whether this is going to be any better or not now. Okay, that's a good sign. The aroma now, getting subtle, sweet vanilla, something a bit fruity, not distinctly rhubarb, but there's definitely more in that aroma now, so hopefully the taste will follow. And I realised last time I forgot to cheers you before drinking this, so apologies. Cheers. It's still subtle, but there's a lot more in there. So this one, I mean, I think what we're talking about really is, this is a pale ale that has notes of rhubarb and custard. This says it's a pale ale, but really is almost a sour beer in that very heavily fruited kind of concept. So this is more matching the description of a pale ale, which they both claim to be. So in that regard, I guess if real beer is what you want, this is an absolute winner. It is still sweet up front, nowhere near as sweet as this, but we'll come back to it just to clarify that. It's much less of a roller coaster. I'd say it's a much easier drinker. You could actually session this beer whereas this you probably get bored after a pint or two. Obviously, my taste buds still aren't absolutely perfect, so if you want to see the full review of this, click the link that's up there if I can add it twice, and if not, put it in the description below. But yeah, I mean, this is more subtle, this is more considered, I would say. This is hints of those flavours, whereas, back to this now, and I can't touch that again really after I've drank this, the rhubarb on the nose of this is hugely prominent, and it's just a flavour explosion. This tastes sweeter, richer, brighter, but is that what you want, is the question. And I can't answer that, and I'm actually going to struggle now to say which one of these is better, which is really the premise of this whole video. If I wanted a sweet treat but didn't fancy something deep, rich, dark, stout, porter, impy territory, then this gets the win. If I fancied a proper beer but that maybe wasn't super hoppy or all that traditional, then this is probably where I'd go. I know this is a bit of a cop-out, and I do feel like I need to choose a winner. I'm struggling, I really am. Which is the better beer? Let's go with that one. This, without doubt, it actually feels more like beer, which is as advertised. This, if it had been listed as a sour, then I go, that's very good sour. Which is the better drink? That's where I'm really toe in the middle of the line. I can't really call it. This one feels very close to giving it that is it really beer moniker, whereas this, I really have no question, it is actually proper beer. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about it. One thing we haven't done yet though is take a look at the can on the Don't Mess With Yorkshire Rhubarb and Custard Pale Ale. So what does it say? Well, not a lot, to be honest. It does, however, list a few interesting things. It says the hops used in this are Centennial, Chinook and Mosaic, which is interesting because, well, it's not particularly hoppy at all, and I don't associate those three with the flavour necessarily that I'm getting. It's only 20 IBUs, so it's not particularly bitter. Its EBC is 8, and its gravity is 1.048, which people don't normally give gravity readings. It's something you only kind of really know about if you're a brewer or do your home brew and stuff. So, I mean, it's interesting to know, but it doesn't really mean anything. The can is 2 UK units on the nose, 4.5%. It's got the Don't Mess With Yorkshire stuff on there, which is, well, last time I thought Don't Mess With Yorkshire was just a series from Northern Monk. Now, it turns out that Don't Mess With Yorkshire is kind of its own entity. They sell clothing and Yorkshire-based things. I don't really understand the premise of the business all that much, even though I did look into them because, well, go and look for yourself. At Don't Mess With Yorkshire on Instagram, don'tmesswithyorkshire.com, go see what you think. But yeah, that's all that's on there. But what I did want to look at was the ingredients, sorry. So the ingredients are water, malted barley, oats, wheat, quite thin for a beer that contains all of those, rhubarb juice, hops, yeast, rhubarb essence and custard essence. So a lot of essence in there, a lot of adjuncts in this beer, as expected, but it does do the job and it does taste like all of those things. It says unpasteurised and unfiltered for proper flavour, may have a light haze, it's right though we made it that way. Cool, okay. It is hazy a bit, but it was nice enough. And then on the Blue Monkey side, the ingredients listed on here, I say water, malted barley, wheat, hops, may contain lactose. Brewed with chunks of real rhubarb and finished with vanilla to give you rhubarb and custard in a bottle. So this seems to be using the real products to zazz up a proper pale ale. This, well, it's full of flavourings if we're honest, but it does make a significant difference. So I think that's all you need to know. This won silver at the London Beer LBC competition in 2021, which is worth knowing. So it's definitely decent. Have you tried either of these? What did you reckon? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, I think that's about all. So I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of these, probably Blue Monkey first before my taste buds get thoroughly destroyed by the rest of the Northern Monk, and we'll leave it at that. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already subscribed, if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.